I went to the AWS Summit 2025, and all I got were these 10 amazing points for public sector leaders. So, what happened last week? And let's talk about it. The AWS Summit is huge. I mean, it's massive. It's something that I wasn't quite prepared for, but it's mind blowing. So 25,000 people turn up to the Excel Center to learn about what AWS are doing in the UK. My little part of the world is the public sector part, but it was amazing to see so many different people from the entire Amazon ecosystem join up. The keynote was led by Alison Kay and followed up with a breakdown of technical stuff from David Brown. Both really kind of like interested and interesting, want to kind of drive forward the agenda of Amazon delivering these quite complex services, but based on really fundamental building blocks across the UK. It was quite inspirational in the way that it seems to be now, and certainly from past experience, the level of things that you can do using this sort of like serverless technology to rapidly compile things that deliver on what clients need has never been faster or cheaper. This sort of the possibilities are only as limited as our imaginations is, sounds a bit cliche, but we're kind of starting to reach this point where just the things you can do quickly are pretty astounding. And I kind of feel that we're getting to a horizon where you could, in theory, kind of end up with more kit than you know what to do with. So it's really good for people like me who are strategists and think about like what's the best way of doing this, how do people get the most from it. But also technical colleagues in the room were sat there having their minds blown in ways that I could not possibly comprehend. So that was cool. Buzzing, absolutely buzzing. It was very cool. But we went off to another corner, which was the public sector part. And in there, there was a series of behind closed door Chatham House rules conversations, which I've kind of done a summary of with the team. We've not attributed anything, but if you were in there and you want to comment or clarify, please leave something in the comments. And it brought together national government, local government, people working for public bodies all around the table. And that's something that I think Amazon, big shout out to people on the team, especially Adrian Hanley, who kind of pulled together these spaces for professionals to discuss about how to get the most from this technology without the sales pitch, without kind of like the, oh no, this is how you do it with this, that, the other. Really giving people space and time to think, to collaborate, to speak. And really appreciate that. And I think, from the mood in the room, it was really productive for everyone who turned up. I attended two discussions in particular, kind of thinking about how to deal with core legacy systems. And what is it we do with our old kit before we move on to the new kit? And then the second talk was, okay, how do we get the new kit in place? So thinking about what AI readiness looks in practice, and that was focused around data, it was focused around systems, it was focused around people. And I think what was really cool was this idea of the common challenges that we face, the shared aspirations we all have. And there's a real kind of sense of universal hopes, dreams, aspirations here. And it's something that we're seeing not just at this round table, but when we're going across the country doing training, when we're working within the LGAI with kind of public sector innovators, with our own work at Datnexa, where I think we've kind of got we kind of worked as the impact innovator with partners on what appear to be 3 sector leading products now. So it's nice to kind of get these touch points and realize that there's a load of stuff in common that we can all learn, regardless of our technical levels, because if you're not technical, there's a human part, there's a strategic part. And if you are technical, you can learn a lot from those other elements. So there are 10 of them. I've already been talking for far too long, so I'm just going to rattle through them now and love to hear what you think about them. So first off, there are barriers to innovation, but what are they in reality? As I said before, kind of the application of this technology is getting easier. So where are they sitting? And actually, it seems to be about organizational maturity and culture. It's not the tech, it's the people. And that's a really kind of interesting space because the emphasis is shifting. AI appears to be more of a wider social change than a technical change. We're certainly seeing in the way that you have a minister for AI. We never had a minister for spreadsheets, for instance. It's something that is kind of hitting us in a different way. So the key questions for organizations, especially in the public sector, is how do you maturely assess and mitigate risk of application of this, risk of not applying this, and kind of really understanding what that landscape looks like. And actually, within there is something that the maturer the attitude to risk, the greater the yield and the benefit of applying this technology. So it kind of means that we move from a fear-based sort of approach to more of an opportunity-based mindset. And this is something that I think will take time to grow, and I think it's something that the whole organization needs to come along with. But certainly we're kind of seeing this idea of like starting small but dreaming big, kind of always thinking at scale in order to ensure that there's a smooth rollout. These are things that are being embedded into corporate culture and hopefully public sector culture in a way that allows us to really look at what's going on here and go, well, actually, there is a risk, but the benefits offset it or don't, and we're not going to proceed with that, or they do, and let's go with it. And as part of that, the role of IT professionals is changing. I'd argue alongside information governance and cybersecurity colleagues as well. And it's something that is making these roles a lot more strategic. So even if you're from a technical background, it could be the strategy step up that's the bit that you kind of need the help and support with. And actually for strategy or organizational colleagues, there's something there in kind of working, collaborating with technical folk in order to build the strongest team. So this is kind of a really interesting space and time for it. And I think kind of what was really heartening was a lot of the time people were talking about things like security, data protection, kind of rights of the individual, and building up trust with the people that they serve as public servants. So yeah, really kind of good touch point to kind of kick off the entire conversation. There are also things, and I think kind of then once you're thinking into this space, right, we're going to do something about trying to define value and how do you actually manage these projects overall. So there was kind of like a hesitance, a kind of a frustration with the existing approach to procurement, which has been one of, right, spec it to within an inch of its life and then take that spec out. How do you spec something and kind of tick box it when you're not sure what that thing is? And that kind of quite circular problem kind of rotated around the table. One idea was thinking about buying a capability, not just products. So I'm not quite sure how to help you with that. Seeking partners who align with your value and your missions, not just kind of who've got a product to sell. We've seen that within the LGAI as well, a frustration of not just wanting a solution that fits a certain thing, but actually going, let's bring our problems to market and then work with people to find the solutions that work. Again, it kind of works into this idea that Dave Brown went through, which is building up all of these different building blocks using the capabilities of the AWS ecosystem to really kind of align solutions that meet that business need. So your product market fit is really close. The idea of focusing on outcomes, not just outputs, and measuring success by impact, not activity. These are all good things that have been around for a while. But actually, in terms of this very powerful tooling, understanding the strategy and the desired objective are going to become inherent across everything that we do, from procurement through to delivery. We in the public sector know that there is growing demand and there is finite, if not diminishing, resource to meet it. In that sort of equation, supply and demand, there is a breaking point. It's not like these are massively charged for services. So think about the painkillers. Think about the things that take away the pain points. It's not just the things that add value, the vitamins, if you will. It's thinking about what are the real and pressing needs and tackle those off, because they are, once solved, things that will free up a huge amount of capacity for you within the organization. Legacy IT reared its head a few times, and really this sort of piece of thinking of, well, there is stuff that not only isn't working as a system as one would wish, but actually the design thinking of that system, because it's become so ossified within public sector structures, can actually influence the procurement and the thinking of future systems. So that sort of computer says no dread that what you're doing is you're just recreating the same thing again, but using newer, shinier kit. So I think here the big kind of question for public sector leaders is thinking about, well, if you were going to start fresh, what would you do differently? What would you have or not have? And again, it comes back to this piece of, this isn't just a technical upgrade, it's culture and org transformation at the same time, which is a bit like Samuel L. Jackson in Jurassic Park having the challenges of setting up a zoo and a theme park. There's a lot of things that can go a little bit wobbly. So really thinking about how you take these constraints and really squeeze the most value out of them as you move forward is key, and thinking about that in a structured way with everyone around the table will help you get the best results. Having everyone around the table brings us to the human element. So this idea of like the culture piece, the fear, the uncertainty, the worry that you can have when these tools are coming in and may take jobs and things like that. And also collaboration and really ensuring that diverse design is good design, and kind of minimizing the sort of unintended consequences. So we kind of felt that this is a bit like the Industrial Revolution. It's reshaping work, it's reshaping roles, but it's also reshaping expectations. There will be new jobs that are created, prompt engineer or vibe coder, for instance. But that also means that there'll be jobs that go, and understanding that and, really speaking to people and meeting them about their fears of that, and actually working with people to understand where they can add more value and where things should change. So reframing AI from a threat to a collaborator is really important. We've been working with people and kind of getting them to think about the AI tools as a new member of the team. It's a really capable member of staff that can do a lot of things, but it was literally born yesterday. So how do you squeeze out the most from that? I think the goal that we all felt, and it was really nice again to kind of be across a few different roundtables with quite a range of public sector digital data and AI leaders, where there's this idea of like using technology to empower, not to replace people, and to really think about what is it that we as humans do best. If you've got a machine on the team, you can leave jobs to them, tasks to them that you don't want to do, and focus on things that they can't do. Building communications, kind of like having face-to-face kind of relationships with people that you're serving within the wider community. So it's really interesting and a great time for that. The idea of data as a lifeblood of AI transformation was brought home with one really powerful metaphor. Imagine a picture of a desert and a picture of a rainforest. And what's the difference? The difference is water. And in an AI desert and an AI rainforest, data is that water. So it's really thinking about it in a way that, yes, you can kind of build these tools and you can do a lot of stuff, but ensuring that there's a strong emphasis on data quality, of data value, of really thinking about what you've got there. We often kind of walk into organizations who think they haven't got any data, and after a few weeks, we're able to have found a lot of insight, a lot of really exciting stuff that sat there, perhaps siloed in different teams, or not thought of directly as a data set. So I think the kind of the key elements here, thinking about like data mobility, thinking about interoperability between different systems that you have, or how you get to that point. Across the public sector, especially in national government, there's massive data sets, and with the National Data Library and things like that, there's the glimmer of hope that all of a sudden we'll be able to do more with these sorts of massive data sets that could give us real insights into what we're delivering on the ground and making that more efficient. There are silos. It's important to acknowledge that as something that we need to overcome and do better on. And I think, again, there was a lot of consensus for that around the room. The opportunity, though, is huge. So we've seen this with the National Frailty Index. By being able to leverage diverse data sets and then reconcile that against existing ones. So we've built a scaffold around frailty for the over 65s in England and Wales using census data. Then being able to map in authority data onto that has just been mind-blowing in the level of insight that we can provide, and how that can improve what's going on at the moment, help inform new services, forecast the future, and also kind of lead to radically new things that we're not quite seen yet. But with all of this brave new shiny world and legacy IT there in the background, how do you manage those two things? And I think, again, there was a lot of support for this sort of two-speed approach. So think about the innovation you need to do quickly, the momentum you need to bring in. So use new tools, new policies, things like that to keep pace. But don't forget, you need to consolidate this by managing the technical debt that you have in legacy systems, in order to, one, make the most of your new investments, but also think about, you don't want to expose a flank to things that increase your threat profile for cybersecurity risks and things like that. So it's a critical thing to do, and maintenance is part of the ongoing piece. It's important as we innovate to remember that one day, this would have been the future once too. So how do we ensure that we keep what we're building now fresh and up to date, and kind of what do we need to kind of stop that wheel recreating itself. So how do you get all of this going? And that's kind of like the key question at this point with this kit. So at Datnexa, we found that strong mission statements and clear objectives need to be there. So everyone knows what they're aiming for, because you're asking people from all around the organization, these multidisciplinary teams, to come together. You need to give them a common goal so they can reach to where we all need to be from where they're from. And that's something about kind of really understanding that not everyone's going to be in the same place. The more you combine technical, operational, policy, resident, user, the more of a rounded picture you get, and the faster that you move, and actually the easier it is to make that culture change piece. It's important to align the mission and the capability, not just the technology. And that's something that, again, as public sector AI leaders, there's a lot that you can do in terms of broadening out your mission, what you do, to as many folk as possible, and really kind of let people kind of get a sense of what's going on there without that sort of overwhelm of tons of jargon, but actually to get an appreciation of what's important in your world as you learn what's important in theirs. So this is something that we just can't reiterate enough, and probably the only way to keep some of these bigger projects on track. So the other element was over 23, 24, 25, we've seen this sort of iterative approach to value. So 23 was all about proof of concepts, all about pilots. Last year, for us especially, it was all about production, getting things delivered into the real world, into users' hands. And then this year, I think for everyone, there's a real focus on value. So it's gone from, okay, can this stuff work at all, to, okay, this stuff's working and it's out there, to, okay, what's the point of it and how do you get the most value from it? So as 25 rolls into 26, there'll be a real emphasis on where's the value in this. We've all had the ones that work and the ones that don't work now. So actually, let's get our heads around this and really focus on grinding out what works in what is unfortunately a resource constrained circumstance with growing demand. So, we have to really keep an eye on the value. But value, I think, importantly, isn't just cost savings, cost efficiencies. It's the value add. It's what can your workforce do now that they're not beholden to some of the more general tasks, the more menial tasks, the more routine tasks, and actually where does value lie for your citizens, for your residents? That's kind of the really big opportunity space for all of this in the public sector, but also across commercial and corporate as well. The value proposition has just gotten real in the way that perhaps it hasn't for the past 20, 30 years. So as a group, I think there's a lot that the public sector can learn from one another. In local government, there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of these projects. In national government, there's certainly been hundreds. There is a bit of a desert of proof of concepts and ideas. We now work in a way that we're actually looking at always delivering national products that we do local instances of in order to avoid the sort of thing of doing a great pilot that won't scale. But the thing is, if we share our successes and failures, we'll cumulatively learn and go on to, kind of have greater success and probably make some new mistakes. This idea of having pre-scaled and ready for local delivery is something that I think is going to grow and grow, and would love to talk to more people about as they're developing and delivering in the future. So, final point, and thank you for staying with me. This is not... it's a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But what is the real value of AI? And around the table, the consensus was it's about augmenting the people, not replacing them at all. So it's thinking about how you introduce efficiency, how you can use AI to forecast demand management, but then giving that to people to come up with the personalized responsive services that all residents need. The 24/7 chatbot that is better than a phone line for a lot of things, but at the point where someone needs to talk to someone else, there is someone who's available on the end of the phone, because they're not dealing with all of the more routine or regular information that people could have got themselves. And this is that whole idea of this will free up staff to focus on more complex, more creative, more empathetic work that an AI simply can't do. So within the public sector, there is a real opportunity here. And I think everyone around the table, kind of feels, their colleagues, the people on the front line, people are there to make a difference. And AI is a tool that can take away the bureaucracy. No caseworker signed up to write a ton of reports every day. They signed up to work with people to make their lives better. So let's kind of keep that as a main kind of objective as we deploy this kit. So I think that is it. It's about building this ecosystem. It's thinking about technology, data, culture, policy across the board, thinking about something that has the right guardrails in place, the right sort of data, the right sort of approach to data, empowered teams who kind of understand risk, who can assess it and mitigate it appropriately, really focused on clear objectives set by leadership, aligned with a strategy. It sounds like a lot, but it feels like the technology perhaps has caught up with where we always hoped it would be. Now, AWS have a lot of good stuff within their ecosystem, and we've certainly just found it mind-blowing how quickly and how robustly we can deliver for public sector clients using things like SageMaker, Bedrock, QuickSight, Lambda. There's loads of foundational blocks. David Brown went through a ton of them. I didn't always understand all of the tech speak, but there's a lot of good things, and certainly the team are really fired up and going for it. This idea of collaboration across technical, data, policy, frontline service, everyone basically is key, and something that at Datnexa we firmly believe in, alongside training and support and kind of being pragmatic and kind of open and plain Englishy about all this stuff. So it's something that we're very excited to do. I'm going to wrap there. Those are the 10 biggest pieces of takeaway that we got from the AWS Summit for AI leaders, data leaders, well, actually anyone really within the public sector. Big thank you to Adrian Hanley again, who invited us along and has kind of helped us along the way. So thank you very much for that. Any questions, comments, theories, whack it in the comments. If there's a like or a subscribe, please do that too. There'll be snippets of this all over the internet for a while, I feel. So yeah, looking forward to hearing more from you. I'm Adam Dustiger, and this has been from Datnexa. Thank you.